Hello and welcome to the Internet Seriously. We are in mid-January. You can't really say Happy New Year to people anymore. We might have peace in the Middle East, which would be, frankly, a load off everybody's heads. And I am here in Oxford with Alice Taylor, research assistant, and a security expert, Aaron Leverett. And we're going to have some fun. We're going to be talking about TikTok, ransomware, and Blue Monday and President Biden. That's the show. So first up, we're going to be talking about ransomware. The UK government put out this week legislative proposals, opens, I think it closes in April, in which they're looking at this issue, which, let's be honest, we've talked about quite a bit on the podcast, is a pretty big issue. And I would say they've broken it down to three main recommendations. One is they don't want people to pay ransoms to the ransomware people anymore. They say it only encourages them and that it boosts the business model. Secondly, they want a setup where they have greater intelligence so they can hopefully put a stop to this. And thirdly, they want the government to understand things more, so that they can sort of come up with greater international cooperation. And as luck would have it, we have a cybersecurity expert and ransomware expert with us here, who was here coincidentally, talking about some of the work that we're doing at Oxford. Welcome, Aaron. Have you had a chance to look through these proposals?
Yeah, I did. And broadly speaking, it's good to think about demonetizing ransomware. So the spirit of the exercise, shall we say, is a good one, and I support it in a variety of ways. However, I think it's tricky. To go through the proposal in a little more detail, they're saying government agencies and schools, which have been particularly impacted by ransomware, not just in the UK, but in the US, threat actors have targeted a lot of private schools because people get sensitive about their children's data and they don't want it published. So it makes sense why the actors would target it. And the idea is that if they refuse to pay ransoms, then they will stop being targeted because everyone will know that these organizations don't pay ransoms.
It's good in theory, though, isn't it? But if you are a private school, if you are an NHS manager, if you are a vice chancellor of a university, I mean, this is what we're talking about, really. Yeah. And your data does get sucked up, and they do threaten to post it unless you pay the money. I mean, you're gonna find a way around, aren't you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for a start, it's not illegal to pay ransoms. There are some checks you would have to go through if you're an organization thinking about paying a ransom. You essentially, if you're in the US, you want to check the OFAC lists to make sure they're not a sanctioned entity, or here in the UK, the OFSI list. But essentially, you would need to make sure they're not some sanctioned terrorist organization or espionage agency or something.
They're legit criminal.
Exactly, right. You only want to pay the legit criminals, the ones who are in it for the money rather than for the data. That in theory is how one would go about it. In practice, it's not illegal, and organizations can choose to do it to protect themselves. And we see a lot of that out of the insurance industry. And so for me, it's a very hot topic item. I've been working on a paper for a couple of years arguing that insurance companies shouldn't be paying the ransoms, they should be paying the losses. So help people recover from the damage rather than pay the ransom itself. And that's another way we could go. But the reason this is tricky is because it's incentive engineering. I think I was joking with you earlier about an example I like to use of my son. We were sitting outside with a friend who I hadn't seen in many years, having a chat, and my son wanted to go play Minecraft, and I sort of wanted him to keep quiet for a few more minutes while I said goodbye to my friend. And so he said, "Can I play Minecraft? Can I play Minecraft?" So as soon as my friend goes home, and he turned to my friend and said, "Can you go home now?" So I thought I was incentivizing good behavior, and I discovered I was incentivizing bad behavior. And I worry this will go the same way.
When you put potentially millions of dollars into the mix, it's not good. I mean, could this go right? Will this go wrong? Is the government sort of barking up a tree, or does it have a serious point here?
I think if this is part of a series of steps and they're prepared to deal with how the system and the situation changes after they've made these new rules, then if it's a sequence of moves, shall we say, it'll work well. If they think that this one move is going to change everything, we'll be in a bit of trouble. And I'll be specific about that, right? There's two ways ransomware gangs make money. One is encrypting your network. One is releasing the data. And it seems like a lot of the gangs change their behavior based on who the victim is. So like a school or a lawyer, they might go with, we threaten to release your data. But a manufacturing company, they might go, we're encrypting all the data in the network, because the privacy is not as important to the manufacturing company.
So can I ask, like, this is going to sound like a really stupid question, but can you explain ransomware to me as though I'm like 2? Because I've got a vague sense of, like, there's some bad people and they hold something to ransom, but, like, what does it actually mean? What do they actually do?
Yeah. No, I love trying to explain ransomware this way. I think it makes everything more sensible. It's extortion, and it's extortion digitally delivered. So what do we mean by extortion? If you don't pay me, I'm going to do something bad to you.
So, and what is it they do? Does it change, or?
Yeah, they change their tactics, right?
Okay.
And I think that was true even in the real world many years ago, but also in the digital world. So the two or three main ways that they do damage, shall we say. One is to encrypt all your stuff and keep the keys so you don't have access to it. So you want an everyday metaphor, they change the locks on your house and they've got the keys and you can't use your house, right?
Yeah.
The other thing they do is they threaten to publish all of your data. So we've stolen all the data, we've exfiltrated it with the fancy words, and then we're going to publish it to the world. So they went into your house, they took all your pictures of you in the bath as a kid, and the embarrassing things that you did.
So the ransom in
Christmas.
ransomware literally means like holding to ransom,
Bingo.
like, you know, I've taken your drink.
Yeah.
Pay me £1,000.
Or I'm not giving it back. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Things my kids do to me all the time, basically. They don't charge millions, but basically it's the same idea.
Yeah.
And then the third thing they do is sometimes DDoS, which is where they flood the network with traffic, or, you know, it's like your children. They ask you so many questions, you can't answer them fast enough, and your brain just shuts down.
So what is the best, you know, say let's say I'm an NHS, running an NHS hospital. What's the best solution? I store my data off-site to have backups. I make sure that I'm updating the security endlessly on all the software that I've got. I mean, is there anything else?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things to do, and I think, you know, without boring your listeners with all of those details, backups are important, off-site backups are important, but they only solve that one side of the problem where they've stolen your data. It doesn't help you. So when they've encrypted your network and you need to restore, those backups are helpful. But if they're threatening to release sensitive data, those backups are not the solution. So our advice in ransomware has traditionally been just make backups. It's not that simple. You also need ways of dealing with the privacy issues. You know, learning what has been leaked very, very quickly can help you respond to what they're threatening to leak. And that in and of itself is a challenge.
This whole other side where they're saying basically, they're saying we want to figure out how to find these people and shut them down. Are we making much progress with that? I mean, cyber crime and fraud is something that everybody is looking at. Are we making progress with ransomware? Do we know who these people are? Is there a way of getting at them?
Yeah, there's some wonderful operations led by the NCA here in the UK and some in the US as well in recent years and months. Operation Endgame, Operation Disrupt. They're even kind of fun to watch if you like. You go to their websites and they have little videos of what they're doing and how they're running the operation, and they even to some degree troll the cyber criminals. So you can get the popcorn out and enjoy the show.
Like a sort of Kit Boga, these like YouTuber vigilantes who catch scammers.
Yeah.
Is it kind of almost
but
like
government
that?
level.
Government level, like,
with
hey.
funding, right?
Like next level YouTube.
Yeah, funding and communication.
They're always very satisfying when you see, you know, someone who's there scamming a granny, and then the realization, first they get annoyed and they become aggressive, but then it's like the panic sets in. So that, it's nice to know that the government is funding these little...
and doing good jobs and collaborating with other nations. So sharing a lot of information across borders to allow people to knock on doors and arrest people and so on. And I mean, you know, are we catching all of them? No, but we're doing a lot better than we were 3 or 4 years ago, and I think it will slowly make a difference.
All right, well, I want to get to the guilty pleasure we'll come to. I want to President Biden's also come with something which is tied in with that, which we'll come to. But first of all, Alice, I believe you have a guilty pleasure this week. So, Alice Taylor, what is your guilty pleasure?
So my online guilty pleasure at the moment is watching these live streams of some people playing Fortnite, and they've got Elon Musk as a kind of guest, but he's pretending not to be Elon Musk. He's pretending to be an Elon Musk superfan called Adrian Dittmann, who is apparently a 20-year-old German man with exactly the same voice and personality as Elon Musk. And, you know, he goes on Twitter as Adrian and posts like, "You're a great father, Elon. You're a great father and a husband." And so on these live streams, they're like, Adrian, what do you think about, you know, Grimes, who's one of Elon's ex-wives? And he goes really uncomfortable and, like, you know, he's just so obviously
so
himself.
There's multiple levels. So you're watching recorded videos of Fortnite of people playing with somebody
a stream.
who...
So they're like, "Hey, Adrian Dittmann,
who claims
come on
to
to
be
Fortnite and play with
Elon
us."
Musk's
Super
biggest fan, but we
Yeah.
do we think it's Elon Musk, or we know it's Elon Musk?
If you listen to it, it's Elon Musk's voice, Elon Musk's personality. He's made like very little. This is the richest man.
Well, my biggest question is, what
in
on
the
earth
world.
is Elon Musk doing playing Fortnite?
Yeah. Well,
watching
what's he
it,
doing?
okay.
Making a pretend. It's called a sock puppet account.
Why does he have a pretend
it's like
person?
it's like a sock puppet. It's like, you're over here doing your content, and the sock puppet's like, "Wow, you're amazing. You're so cool." And it's like, there's been this, you know, post going around that's like, it's really sad that it's like all that money, all that power, and he just wants validation.
I don't have
It's
time
actually
to play Fortnite. I wonder how the billionaire. Is he any good at the game?
I haven't really watched for his game playing skills. It's more just the kind of the trap of like, can you believe that this, like somebody said, it's like he's the most unemployed seeming person. For the richest man in the world, he's so unemployed.
And what's the pleasure aspect to it? Because frankly, I've had enough of Elon Musk, and I've never heard from him again.
That's
I'd be
why it's
happy.
the kind of the guilty pleasure online, is because it's like, oh, I know I could be like doing something else, but it's like every time they come up on my TikTok, I'm just like, I'm gonna watch this because it's so funny. Just watching, it's, you know, it's like he has the money to hire an actor to pretend to be this guy, or to do some amazing AI voice modification, but he just sits there with his voice as like a middle-aged man being like, and you know, I would say he's got like the most distinct accent. I've never heard a person who has his accent, so it's just so clearly him, same laugh, same like mannerisms, and it's just amazing. It's just, you're watching someone have like a nervous breakdown in real time, but you know, which is
there's always there's a corner of the internet for everything, isn't there?
There definitely is.
Guilty pleasures. Elon Musk pretending not to be Elon Musk,
to be a 20-year-old
playing Fortnite.
That's weird. That's
and
super
everybody
cringy.
knows.
It's very weird.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello, kids.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Hello,
fellow
I am a 20-year-old
children.
man, and yeah.
I mean, I play video games, but I don't pretend to be 20 when I play video games.
Yeah, or to be a super fan of yourself.
Yes.
I think that's the most heartbreaking element to this whole thing.
I would not want to be a psychiatrist with Elon Musk coming into the room. You know, you're like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much
What
money you
what
give
would
me.
motivate? Would you ever go on social media as a pretend account and be like, Kieran McCarthy, just such amazing work,
No.
such a talented journalist, like such a great father? We're just like, how bad would things have to be in your life?
The richest man in the world is
to do
completely
this?
mad.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good one. I
Yeah,
wasn't aware of
thank
that
you.
at
No,
all.
Yeah.
I wasn't. I mean, there's nothing weirder than folk on the internet, right? Like the internet has very strange corners. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Certainly does. Yeah.
Talking of sort of strange old men, President Biden and Donald
Emmys.
Trump, you know,
Let's get the old folks
as
home.
well
into
as
the conversation.
seemingly brokering a peace agreement in the Middle East, they are sort of having, they're switching roles next week, coming up on Monday. And President Biden has been putting out, I really wish they would, he's been putting out executive orders that presumably the new president will then overturn 3 days later.
So I haven't heard anything about this. What are the executive orders?
The one that I'm interested in, was it today? It was yesterday. He's put out a cybersecurity executive order. And this is quite...
We have lots of them. It's understandable how you missed it.
Yeah.
It doesn't alert you on TikTok, for example.
No,
but it's just as
It's
cringy.
fine.
No, these
Flies
things
under
come
the
out
radar.
all the time. This one's quite interesting in that he's saying, and he's right, and it was also a poke at Donald Trump and Russia and all of this world that we're living in. And he is saying the issue we've had is, we've been saying for years that all companies, especially if they get federal funding, need to meet these criteria for cybersecurity. And they basically said it hasn't worked. You know, we keep getting, you know, we could go into all of the break-ins just this year, some really serious ones. And they say it's not working, so what we're going to do instead is we're going to insist that you prove that you've met all of these undertakings that you say that you have. And that's the executive order, which is kind of a slightly strange admission of failure of the sort of American way of doing things, you know. So now they're getting a little bit stronger. I imagine Donald Trump will immediately rescind that because it goes against, but then he may have difficulty rescinding it because then it looks like he's loosening things up. Who knows what on earth's going to happen? But
I don't try and predict him. I predict other things in life, like vulnerabilities. I do some vulnerability forecasting, but predicting what U.S. presidents are going to do, I'm out. I'll tap out.
There's a tweet he's read that morning. But in terms of this whole approach, I mean, the president of the United States is basically saying the federal government's approach hasn't worked. We're now going to have to mandate it, and you're going to have to prove that you've hit this. Now, my question would be, I suppose, why aren't these companies doing it? Or are they, and the US government suspects that they're not, or are they not reaching these security standards that which they agree to? What's going on? Do you have any insight?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mixture of a lot of things, right? What do I mean by that? So, you know, these companies, they write software, the software has vulnerabilities. Academically, scientifically, have we figured out to write vulnerability-free software yet? I think everyone knows that's not true. You don't have to be an academic. You know it's impossible to write code that's completely secure. So what do we have to do? We have to manage the vulnerabilities that are out there. Well, guess what? There's more and more every year. We have a backlog of vulnerabilities that we're publishing. And that's the big companies, the small companies, everybody. So some companies we think have figured out certain types of vulnerabilities and they're like on the decline and they're fixing it and kind of learning their lessons. But they definitely have new types of vulnerabilities that are emerging that they're still learning how to deal with and fight. So this how do we write completely secure code thing, no, we just can't do that. So we have to manage the problem. And I think that's more what the executive order is about. What can they do to manage this problem?
Well, like the UK government, you think, I mean, this is the right thing, but will it actually work? Will people actually do it? Will it actually impact? I mean, how do we get to a more secure place?
I know I'm gonna sound like old and fuddy-duddy and whatever, but incentives, right? There's no liability in software. If I write bad software and it's got vulnerabilities in it and you get hacked, I don't get charged money. And maybe we shouldn't have liability, but the effect is people don't fix a lot of this stuff as quickly as they could. There's also a difference between all the vulnerabilities that exist and the ones that get exploited. We think out of all the ones that exist, only about 4% get exploited. So how do we find that 4% rather than the rest of the 96% that's noise in advance?
So I'm just wondering, as someone who knows like nothing about any of this and haven't even heard that this had happened, so like politically, why do you think Trump would overturn this? Like, what's his kind of, in Trump world,
because,
what would be the motivation?
Well, I mean, this is the impossible thing with this man who's about to become president of the United States, is that I can make cases for why he will strongly come out on both sides of it. He'll say this is anti-American, that the government shouldn't be dictating this, we must leave it open.
Okay, so it's too much government control.
Too much government.
Could be.
Or is it like the US is weak and hasn't been doing enough?
Oh, you're picking up on this whole manly thing that's on that side of the internet right now, which is another thing we should talk about.
Yeah, we should. I think also we have to acknowledge, forget their personalities. Like, this isn't necessarily just a Trump thing. It's almost like an American tradition. Right. New president comes in, overturns all the executive orders.
Everything before was terrible. Right. I'm here.
It's now
now it's good.
We're under fresh management. There's no more problems.
Nothing can be got through Congress. They do executive orders. It's pretty depressing. Talking of which, there's another big American executive. Well, not executive order. Supreme Court decision about
chaos.
TikTok.
Yes.
And whether they should simply ban TikTok in the United States. Yes. And it looks like it is edging towards, based on the Supreme Court discussion, edging towards banning an app. But at the same time, I've got to throw in, turns out that the TikTok's CEO is going to be sat very close to Trump during his inauguration. So people are like, what's he going to do?
Yes.
So you have an interesting...
briefly comment? Like, where did we get where Americans are banning companies? I mean, Americans love companies.
I've been following the TikTok ban very, very closely. I would say, obsessed with what is happening, as I think a lot of people in the UK have, because a lot of, I'm a big TikTok user and a content creator, and a lot of the people I follow are American. So I'm feeling like, oh, they're all going to go, all my favourite people that I like watching. And I think that this is the funniest story ever, because the America is trying to ban, it's against freedom of speech. They're trying to ban an app because it's too Chinese, and the Chinese will do spying and they're going to steal all your data. And so all the American TikTok users have responded by going, okay, bye, like, forget TikTok, we're joining Zhao Hongshu, which is, it means Little Red Book, or Red Note is what people are calling it. I've downloaded it, I've got it on my phone, just to kind of see, like, what's been going on, and it is just incredible what's happening, because all these Americans and all these Chinese people who use it, so they're having this beautiful kind of cultural exchange, and they're, really like, here's a picture of my baby, here's my baby, well, look, I've got a dog just like you, do you have supermarkets in China? Yes, do you in America?
What is
really
the vibe? Is it a friendly social media?
It seems very friendly.
It's like the old internet.
Well,
it's the one I want back.
A lot of people, they're saying it's like in the 90s or the early 2000s where the internet started, and it was like, hi guys, we're over here in our country, and people are saying, like, this is so funny, because the government is like, oh, watch out for those Chinese people, like, we can't, their Chinese app, and all the people on Zhao Hongshu are saying, that TikTok's banned in China, guys, like, we don't even use it.
Why is this one not? Why is this one not banned? Shouldn't we just go around banning everything we don't like that?
Well, exactly, because then it's like, okay, US government, if you ban TikTok, are you then going to spend the next however many years trying to ban this app, by which time there'll be another one? But apparently it's a very positive, lovely place, and people are really learning a lot about Chinese culture, and Chinese people are learning a lot about American culture, and lots of Americans are kind of saying, like, I really feel like I'm learning a lot about the propaganda, dare I say, or the messages, the negative messages
just
we receive about China. Just in terms of the language,
I mean, I'm assuming most of this is in
Mandarin.
simplified Chinese Mandarin.
As a person that joined this app, I signed terms and conditions that were written in Mandarin, with a Mandarin accept button. I didn't understand any of it. So of all these people, they've just been like, yeah, cool, sign me up.
When it's in English, it's unintelligible as well, right?
Does anyone read terms and conditions when they're in a language you actually
they're in legalese,
can
as far
read?
as I can
Well, I mean, like, sort of gifs of lovely puppies are the same in any language, I suppose.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. And people are saying, like, I feel like I'm going to get, like, a knock on the door in a few weeks, and it's going to be, like, the makers of Squid Game 3 are here because I signed the terms and conditions for Red Note without reading them. But, yeah, what's also hilarious is it's a guy who's Chinese, and he's living in, I think, Vancouver. Just did a video. Lots of Chinese people on TikTok are becoming really popular because they're just being like, welcome to Red Note, everyone. It's really nice to have Americans here and just be, like, respectful of our culture because things are a bit different. And for some reason, somebody American shared his video and was like, the CEO of Red Note has welcomed us to Red Note, and he was like, I'm not the CEO, I'm just a random guy. I don't even live in China. And now it's like, it was shared on Fox News, this clip of him with CEO of Red Note welcomes Americans.
I don't,
and
honestly,
he's just a Chinese man.
I feel like the world is spiraling out of control.
And it was
I love those stories though, when, like, one completely anonymous person is thrust into random
the spotlight,
fame. And I feel for them. That's part of the reason I watch such things. But they're thrust into fame and then misattributed, right? Like CEO.
Literally,
and then for years, all these people think you're the CEO, and you have to deal with it. It just becomes like this comedic thing that annoys you every 2 days.
So there's this whole trend at the moment of, it's called TikTok refugees. So these are the people who are the Americans who are like, okay, bye TikTok, we're joining Red Note. And so it's like hashtag TikTok refugees. And they're saying, well, you can be the CEO of the TikTok refugees. But they just, there was this post that was like, you, a Chinese person, welcome to Red Note, America, the CEO, guys. Like, he's here. Just anyone will do. So.
All right, so we've got, people that respond to the TikTok ban by downloading
a more Chinese app.
A more
and having
Chinese
a
app. I mean,
wonderful-
I kind of love the internet roots around censorship.
Right. Exactly.
People now root around
Apparently,
censorship.
like,
And apparently American
spite
censorship
is
too, right?
the biggest motivation for this. Is like, I didn't even want to join, but it's a nice screw you to the government for trying
Well, so in terms of,
Yeah.
Does that mean there's a lot of like Trump fans on it as well? Because they're usually not so keen on government regulation,
I
right?
mean, so the sort of stuff I consume is very tailored to me, and I don't sort of have
You
those
wouldn't see it,
political
right.
allegiances, so I don't really know. But I would imagine. I mean, TikTok's a hugely
well, that's the
popular
question.
app.
X is going right-wing MAGA. Blue Sky is getting increasingly left-wing.
And
So we've got
now
silence, and now we've got
Yeah.
so, and then we'll find out where this one lies. Communist.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah,
all
yeah,
become
yeah.
communist.
But I think what's really the sort of the last thing I want to say about this, what's really interesting is that I feel there's been this sense of these traditional social media platforms have been kind of like, haha, once we ban TikTok, you'll have to come back to X. And
Dream on.
and it's like, no, we're going to join an app that's in Mandarin, like it hasn't even been translated to English, before we go back to X. That is the message that they want to send.
Yeah.
And I think that's a wonderful thing.
And talk about banning things, I think it's time we go to our Room 101. Aaron, did you have a Room 101?
Oh, wow. Dangerous. I was only 101. But I think I'm going to go out on a limb and be really honest here and say JavaScript.
Just
JavaScript.
All of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just the typing in the language is so crazy, and I know not everyone who watches this is a programmer.
I've tried learning Python, which I quite liked.
Yeah.
And I've tried learning JavaScript, and I hated it because there's too many semicolons. That's just
Right.
how I feel.
And I mean, this is a bit academic side again, but I remember watching a talk from someone who helped design Java and JavaScript, and they were describing that they were trying to design the security of the programming language, and there was a faction of the language designers who were fighting against them to make sure they never got control of the security. And I certainly have found that. Like 90% of the stuff I find on the internet is
true.
malware written in JavaScript badly.
That's
So I would rather not have to deal with the implications of the existence of
Because
JavaScript.
I read somewhere that JavaScript is deliberately designed to be really faffy and have all the semicolons and brackets, so that almost like you have to know what you're doing with it, and it means you have to make sure it's written like really clearly and you've put all your semicolons in the right place, and that it doesn't run if you don't. Is that correct?
it's meant to break in the sense that you will now know that something's broken.
Yeah.
But of course that just happens thousands of times a day and makes you angry.
Just 'cause you've forgotten
This is giving me
semicolon.
flashbacks to when I was studying at university. The lecturers tried to teach us a code called Fortran, which they had learnt.
Is that what
And-
4chan, the thing, is that what it's based on?
Oh, I don't
Wow.
know.
'Cause
I
I heard
love
of it
that.
the
I
other
don't- I
day
don't
and
believe
was
so.
I've
like,
made that connection.
But
Okay.
I'm hoping
I'm going to
that
say yes.
Maybe it's
we're
not-
going to say yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The thing I
Amazing,
remember
yeah.
distinctly about Fortran, which drove me crazy, and I think this is accurate if I remember correctly, was you had to put 7 spaces in front of every new line.
Yeah,
For
wow.
some reason lost in time.
Yeah,
And so
tabulating all your code, so it's like
It had to fit in neatly, and so
Yeah.
before you could type anything, you'd have to tap the space bar 7 times.
And if
we
you
were-
do 8 times,
And-
just the whole thing.
Yeah,
And
break, it would
we
break.
said, can you please teach us C++, not Fortran? No, we need to learn Fortran because these guys were living.
I mean, back
20
in
years in the
Edinburgh,
past.
this is 2005, 2010, we had to take exams in programming. And of course, those exams were on paper. So I had to write Java objects
On paper?
on paper
That's great.
for an exam. And
goodness.
I hate to break it to you, I am a programmer. I'm not a great one, pretty clumsy, but I'm
you
not a
ever do this
compiler.
in
Right? Like
real
you would
life?
like I know even people who had to do punch cards and stuff, they didn't really have to
Yeah.
get their entire objects
That's
right.
wild.
But like to write an object out in paper and then have someone grade you on it. I don't know if they just like scanned it and put it into the compiler. Compiler said no, and they said fail.
That would
but
be honestly my nightmare would
Yeah.
be going home with a pile of written out JavaScript papers
Having
to
to
mark.
check all
Right.
the semicolons.
But hang on, before we chuck it in Room 101, what if we got rid of JavaScript? Wouldn't lots of things just stop working straight away?
well, I guess it depends on how we got rid of it. Like if we can go back in time and make sure it never exists, then something else will replace it.
Right.
Am I allowed to do that in Room
that-
101?
is that
I don't know.
the
Is time
rules?
travel?
I don't know.
Yeah, because if you did just like suddenly make it non-exist and all the JavaScript we've already written is still there, I might have to
Everything
recant.
would break.
I might have to back
Yeah.
down on that one.
What can what can you
So if-
switch
if
over? If
we
you want to
did go back
rewrite
in time,
JavaScript in
yeah.
a different language, what would
Oh,
you go
good
for?
point. I mean, we do have PyScript now. Python, you know, it's a little bit
Python,
easier to
yeah.
read. One of the things about JavaScript that drives me crazy. Do you know much about code obfuscation? Like
Not at
people,
all. I've
people will
never heard of it.
they'll deliberately make their code unreadable because they're a company doing advertising and they don't want you to read how it works, or they're malicious gangs trying to hide their malicious code
Their evil
in
doings.
obfuscated JavaScript, right? So there are legitimate reasons to obfuscate and there are illegitimate reasons to
JavaScript is the place to go if you want to hide your
But the
work in.
thing that makes me crazy is that the obfuscated JavaScript and the regular JavaScript are almost indistinguishable anyway. So, like,
It's-
what's the
yeah.
difference?
And
right?
that it's such a faff to
Yeah.
look at some JavaScript. So it's a good deterrent, I guess.
Right?
You know?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to have it. We'll take
All
it.
Thank
JavaScript's
you.
in the bin.
Yes.
Every website.
Yes. Yeah.
It's gonna
Every
go
piece of
wrong.
software.
That's for
will-
you, Memo.
Don't try
Hey,
and
maybe that's
book on
maybe that's a
Airbnb
good
for
thing.
next week
Yeah.
till they rewrite it
Exactly.
in Python.
Tough luck. Yeah.
Okay, good. And then the sort of last thing is that we've got coming up Blue Monday, which
wow.
is this, and it is apparently the most depressing day of the year. It certainly is in the UK. I'm not sure about Australia. It's probably
Yeah.
quite nice in Australia right
Yeah,
now.
probably. Bit of sunshine.
So you think it's a temperature related?
I think
Is
it
it?
is. We are heading into
It's not just the
third
color
week
of the British sky.
Yeah,
Right,
There's
yeah.
something about. I think it's a very UK thing. There's something
So
about the
I
third
read
week of
that
January.
There's this whole thing now of like, we're mammals, right? We're not robots. We're actually meant to be not hibernating, but having a very chilled winter. And we decide like January, Christmas is over, New Year's resolution time. What are you going to do to better yourself as a human? And it's like, I feel like by the time you get to this far into January, it's like your gym membership, you're like, why did I spend all that money? Your new, I don't know, diet is failing and you just feel like a failure. But I'm like, that's probably because we think that January is the time to be, you know,
Yeah.
the
You're like
best version
legally
of
allowed to
yourself.
be depressed and you're supposed to better yourself.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
January is
I've
all
just
about.
realised
Yeah.
that the jogging, the spike in jogging in January, tailing off
Yeah.
heavily in February,
What
is
if
both
we
a
did,
Room
like,
101
you
and a
know-
guilty pleasure.
Once
for me.
you've made it to February 14th, you've lost all the weight for Valentine's Day, and now you can put it back on. It's like,
There you
it's
go.
fine.
I find February very bleak. What if we did like new summer's resolutions? What if it was like in
Oh,
June? It's
I
like,
like
what's your
it.
New Year's resolution now? Would
Yeah.
all be, it's warmer, you're feeling happier. Maybe New Year's resolutions would be like amazing.
Totally
but I think
different.
it's because we choose to do them in January.
All
And
right.
it's the miserablest time.
Well, it's coming up. We're going to push through, and just totally coincidentally, Blue Monday will also be the inauguration of President Trump. in
Oh,
Washington,
really?
D.C.
Wow, that's tough. That's
Yeah.
tough. Yeah. Okay.
Or fitting,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Whichever way you want
Yeah.
to look at it.
Yeah.
And I think we'll wrap up there. So we talked about the new ransomware UK plan, which might work.
Might work. Yeah.
We've got Biden's new cybersecurity executive order, which might work for 2 days before it's repealed, rescinded. TikTok, the reaction to TikTok with people going more communist, which you gotta love the internet for that.
Yeah.
And Monday coming up is going to be the most depressing day of the year, apparently.
Yes.
So there you go. That is
Yeah.
the internet story seriously for this week. Thank you very much, Aaron and Alice. And I hope you have a better Monday than we will.